Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we're going to go over a few news stories and stuff up on the horizon. I'm going to make some brief comments about The Batman, which I just recently saw, and then we are going to finish our discussion of Our Flag Means Death. So let's get started with our On Beat segment. On Beat is, of course, our weekly news segment. And our first story is that Amazon is going to be purchasing MGM for $8.5 billion. That's, of course, if it doesn't get held back by government agencies or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty big. If it goes through, it's pretty big news for Amazon Prime Video because they'll have all of MGM's legacy content. Mm-hmm. This includes the James Bond franchise, Rocky, RoboCop, Silence of the Lambs, MGM.
Stargate series, Fargo TV series, yeah.
I mean, MGM has been around since the golden age of cinema. So, they've got a huge library of content.
It's rather small in comparison to like a Disney or like with all the stuff they own or like, even Sony now, I think, owns like a lot more.
Well, those companies also like, especially Disney,
have done acquisitions.
And I don't think MGM's ever done an acquisition. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. That's probably horribly wrong. But
yeah, so
it's still version. Considerable.
This already passed the EU equivalent of the FTC. They basically said that it's not like a notable purchase in the sense that like it's not going to halter competition or something, in the way that there's more concern with, say, like when Disney bought Fox. That was like a bigger deal, I think, than this. So because it's, Amazon doesn't really own a lot of content,
Amazon isn't a media company, they
dabbled before this.
Yeah, they dabbled. It's a little different with Amazon than it is with like Disney, because Disney was a media company buying another media company. This is Amazon at the end of the day is an e-commerce company.
It's a bookstore buying.
It's e-commerce. It's, they're essentially Walmart on the internet.
Yeah.
It's like, they have Amazon Prime Video and they have produced content for it, but they were never like big league, So this and the money they're pouring into projects like Lord of the Rings is Amazon more heavily getting involved in producing, media content.
Yeah. So the details are that they're getting 4,000 films, 1,700 episodes of television. That's what MGM has produced. So it is a lot, but comparatively, it's not that big of a deal compared to like other big mergers that have happened in the last few years.
Right.
But still, it's a big deal. $8.5 billion. It's a lot of money. It is kind of funny though. It's a lot of money, but it's like, it's maybe 1/8 of that is like what Lord of the Rings is costing for 2 seasons.
Yeah, really.
So everything's big money now. So yeah, but that's our first story. Our second story is that Adult Swim will be celebrating its 25 years of Toonami.
Woo!
They're ordering
it's been 25 years. Yeah. Feeling old. God damn.
In celebration, they're ordering 2 new FLCL seasons.
Nice.
FLCL Grunge and FLCL Shoegaze are the names of these new seasons. I haven't watched the last 2 seasons that they made. I've kind of heard things.
I've watched the original FLCL run. I haven't watched any of the newer seasons.
The originals are classic. The new ones, I have no idea.
When I first saw FLCL, on Adult Swim, naturally, when it premiered, I adored that show. It was so good. Like I bought the manga adaptation and I also bought like the soundtrack to go with it. Like it's so good. But yeah, I haven't watched anything outside like the original episodes.
So my first experience with FLCL is kind of funny. I was at an anime expo, and it was the year that it had moved from Los Angeles to the Disneyland Hotel in Anaheim. Mm-hmm. And me and my friends used to go to Anime Expo, and we went that year as well. And they would always have like late night screenings where they just were like screening weird stuff, more of like the weirder animes.
Yeah.
And they were screening this, and it was new in Japan at the time. And it was like a fan sub that they were screening.
Okay, so this was before Cartoon Network even picked it up then.
Oh, way before, like years before.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so we went in at 2 a.m. We'd been drinking and went in there to hang out and watch, whatever crackpot anime they had going on at the time, which is, they had like weird stuff usually. Uh-huh. And FLCL was playing and we were like, what the fuck is this? we were all hooked. Like a couple of us were hooked, and then they were screening it again like the next night, like late at night. And so we went and grabbed like a bunch of our friends that didn't go with us the first time, and we're like, okay, you guys got to go too, got to see this. And we went again the next night earlier so we could catch it kind of from the beginning, and we're watching a bunch of it. So yeah.
And like Adult Swim, I always appreciate Adult Swim because like their willingness to air stuff like FLCL, even if it wasn't like a mainstream thing, was like, that was how I found that show. So like I definitely like appreciated, like the exposure to like anime like Cartoon Network gave me at the time. Cause there were all kinds of shows that they aired too, like, Outlaw Star was another one they were airing.
Outlaw Star was
Trigun.
God, I remember that, just that era of space western anime.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, and Outlaw Star, all within like a couple of years of each other.
Yeah, all within a couple of years. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I love those times.
So besides those 2 seasons of FLCL, they've also ordered a new horror anime called Housing Complex C. And they're making more stuff with Tom and Sarah. Tom being like the robot from Toonami, that's voiced by Steve Blum. And Sarah was like the AI that ended up becoming a robot as well. And they do like little short films and stuff. They're doing a 4-part anime short called Cosmo Samurai Part 2 that features them. And then a 2-part CG special called The Return that features them. Those were also ordered. So yeah, lots of Toonami goodness for your nostalgia.
Nice.
So, next news story, True Detective Season 4. So, it's going to be called True Detective Night Country. It's still rumor, but it's being reported by major outlets like Variety and Hollywood Reporter. So, it's probably actually in development.
Yeah, I mean, if the major outlets are reporting it, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, this isn't like Nintendo rumors. This is, straight up industry papers,
Yeah, this isn't like, if this was posted on like one of those fan websites, like, I don't know, Phil's Film Rumors.
No, yeah, this is Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline type stuff here.
Yeah.
But what's being rumored here, it's going to be called True Detective Night Country. And it's being made, apparently, without the original showrunner and creator of True Detective, Nick Pizzolatto, who did all 3 original seasons. But a few months ago, or maybe a year ago or so, HBO said they were parting ways with him in regards to True Detective. So
it's interesting, though, that HBO would want to continue the brand without the creator. But but then again, like, we're in an era where like IP is king, and I could see like HBO not wanting to let go of the brand because people do recognize it as an HBO brand. So if they were to make a true crime story and call it something else, they'd be starting, they wouldn't have that name recognition.
So the people that are reportedly involved in this version of True Detective is Issa Lopez, who would be taking over the role of showrunner. She's written a few things, mostly smaller stuff. She wrote 3 Sundays is one of the things she did. And director Barry Jenkins, who did Moonlight, which was like a big stir a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
They're the two kind of involved in this project, see it through. So we'll see what it ends up looking like.
I mean, we'll see it because like it's a new story with new characters, a new creative team. So I mean, it's gonna have the True Detective name, but it's still like, and at this point, we don't know like any details about it, so it's still an unknown quantity. So we'll have to learn more about that when that stuff comes out.
Yeah, it's also apparently going to be set in the Arctic, and it's believed to have 2 female leads.
Right.
So that's about all we know about it. We'll have to see what they end up doing with that. Our next piece of news, normally we don't do casting stories. Like if a casting story comes up, we don't cover it. But if like a new show is announced and that includes casting, we'll talk about that. But this time, it's a big casting story. And it's probably for a rather small role, but still, it's still a big deal, I think, for us and our audience. And that is that Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown himself, is reportedly going to appear in The Mandalorian Season 3. Great Scott.
Great Scots, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Christopher Lloyd's in his 80s now, I believe. But man, it's great to see him. I just saw him. He was in that Nobody movie with Bob Odenkirk. He played Bob Odenkirk's father in that.
Oh, really? Okay, I still have to watch that.
Yeah, so that's the last time I saw him. So it's cool. It's always cool to see Christopher Lloyd pop up in something. And then our last story is that Paul Dano, the Riddler in the Batman movie, is going to be writing a Riddler comic book called Riddler Year One. So that's kind of cool. Like,
that's kind of neat.
Actors that are kind of cultish getting involved in like the writing process on something related to their character. It shows their investment in their character.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It was pretty neat, actually.
Paul Dano's a pretty cool actor too. He's like, before this, he was like an indie darling. He was like,
I've
watch
seen
a lot
Paul
of indie
Dano
movies. You've seen him in a bunch of stuff, from
like
There Will Be Blood to LIE, and he's been in stuff since he was like young, since he was like a kid.
Right. Yeah. I've seen Paul Dano films before. Yeah,
he's excellent. So that's really cool that he's going to be kind of getting involved more in his character, after his movie's out, But that's it for our news segment. But talking about the Batman is going to be the lead into our On Tap segment. What we've been watching. What we've been playing. What's on tap? On Tap is our segment where we talk about, stuff that we've watched, but not necessarily both of us having watched it. And we don't go into full spoilers. That's our full spoiler segment. But On Tap this week, we're going to be talking about the Batman because I just saw it. And I kind of wanted to go over a few things about my thoughts about the Batman. First off, I'll say that it did certain things in this movie better than I've seen anything do in any of the Batman movies before.
Right.
And so that's always like immediately that sets the tone of that this is a very positive experience, that it does certain things better than any of the other movies. One of those that I really liked in this movie is that it does a much better job than any of the movies at establishing how scary Batman is to the people that he goes after.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, they do a really good job of kind of putting you in the shoes of the people that he's like stalking and what it must feel like for them to know that he's coming.
Right.
To, like, see the bat signal in the sky and go, oh shit, he's out. He's going to be around. Is he going to come for me while you're like committing a crime or something? And then like just you hear a sound and you're freaking out, and that kind of, they really kind of put that aspect front and center in this movie in a way that they haven't really done as well in any of the other Batman movies. So I think that's really cool. Another thing is I love the way this movie is shot. It's shot with kind of like the blurred edges. So it's like shot in like an anamorphic widescreen, which means that like it's a wide angle lens rather than cropped down. And that causes like the edges of the screen to kind of blur. And it makes us kind of like where it looks like everything's in like a real tight focus. So like you get the foreground's really tight in focus, the background's blurry, that kind of stuff.
I'm really excited for this movie. Unreasonably excited for this movie. When I finished like watching the Nolan films, when I finished The Dark Knight Rises in theaters, I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, geez, is there any reason to continue making Batman movies? Like, they're going to have such a hard time topping this. this run of movies. I just thought, God, this is like the perfect Batman. I don't see like anything. And now like seeing this, I'm like, oh shit, no, maybe they did. Maybe they did top it. I'm like, God, yeah, it looks so good. I can't wait to personally watch it myself.
Looking back on the Nolan movies, as much as I liked about them, there's certain things that like really bothered me about them. I really hated the cell phone ex machina part in The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some stuff when you go back, like, they're not, like, as spotless as they seemed at the time. Mm-hmm. I still think The Dark Knight is still one of the best crime movies ever made, but, like, I get that. And, like, yeah, Dark Knight Rises is also, like, very flawed film, too.
Yeah, definitely. But this is like, honestly, I think this feels like a lot like a better movie to me. But this is recency bias too.
Right.
It's going to take a while before it really settles for me and I can kind of start more picking apart.
There's
a car chase scene in this movie that's just fucking fantastic.
It's just kind of the thinking like I had where I was like, okay, like the Nolan films had like, to me, like the perfect tone and everything that they were going for. I just thought, what are they going to do for a follow-up? You can't regress to silly Batman. And I just thought, God, this is going to be a hard act to follow. And I got to give Warner Brothers all the credit. I got to give everybody involved in this movie all the credit because I haven't seen it yet, but from all accounts, it seems like they did it.
They went grittier. They went, I think, even darker in the sense that it's just moodier.
Right.
And it just feels like one thing I've heard a lot of people describe it as, and it's true, is it's very wet. It's very rainy through the movie. And that really
yeah.
That really sets like a look to it, The way the red colors like really glow and shine in this really gives it like this dark sensibility to it. It works so well. And this isn't a big deal because there haven't really been great roles for this, but this is easily the best portrayal of the Riddler I've seen. But that's not necessarily saying a lot, I mean, Jim Carrey's great and all, but he was in a Schumacher film.
Yeah. Yeah, and Joel Schumacher was definitely drawing upon heavy inspiration from the 60s Batman television series for his interpretation. Like, Joel Schumacher really leaned into the goofiness of that. And, like, this is a comic book, which, the other adaptations didn't do. And I think that was a large reason why Schumacher's films were so hated.
They're just corny.
Yeah. They're just, corny to the max.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have too terribly much more to say about it because, I mean, I would, but I don't want to go into like spoilers on it. But it's just really good. It does such a good job of just being gritty and just true. And I think one of the things that's awesome is that it brought back Detective Batman, which like, I think the last time we've seen Detective Batman is like the animated series.
Yeah. They never really did Detective Batman in the films.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that was an aspect that the films haven't really explored. So it's good to see that brought more into focus too.
Yeah. The detective elements, the way like the crime elements work in this, it's almost like Seven, like the David Fincher movie. It's so good. I can't wait for you to see it so we can talk about it some more. But yeah, it's awesome.
I think it's supposed to be on HBO Max next month.
That'll be great. That'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah.
So that's it for our On Tap segment. Our next segment is On the Horizon. On the Horizon is, of course, where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. And we're going to be starting things off with something we're going to be talking about next week on the podcast. And that is Moon Knight, which comes out on Wednesday, March 30th on Disney+.
I'm looking forward to it. It looks cool.
Yeah, I've been hearing good things too. People who have gotten like screeners and stuff have been saying some very positive stuff about it. So
nice.
It's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. And Oscar Isaacs is amazing. So it's going to be cool to see him in it. Next up, we have The Bubble. This is that movie that has that movie within a movie in it. Cliff Beast 6.
Something like that, yeah.
We watched like the fake trailer for the movie within a movie, and then we saw a trailer for that. Well, that movie comes out on Netflix on Friday, April 1st. Perfect date, April Fool's Day.
Oh, of course.
Also on April 1st, the rest of our stuff that we're talking about on the horizon have all coming out on April 1st. The Outlaws hits on Amazon Prime. This is a new series starring and co-created by Stephen Merchant. That's about a guy doing community service who somehow gets involved in organized crime. Stephen Merchant, that's amazing. So it'll be fun to see.
He's a funny dude. So that sounds like a pretty funny premise.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Also on April 1st, Morbius hits theaters. Of course, that's the Sony MCU partially on the side universe continues. The Venomverse continues. I kind of don't have... I'll watch this when it's available to stream somewhere.
Yeah, this isn't a film that you go to theaters to see. I'm sorry. It's some goofy shit.
I got burned by Venom.
It's some goofy shit Sony wants you to watch because, like, they're desperately trying to have a cinematic universe with, like, the limited pool of characters they have access to.
Yeah, Venom just was not great, and you could see even in just the trailer for Morbius, like, they're really trying to go with the tone set by Venom rather than the tone set by Spider-Man, so it's kind of disappointing.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But that's Friday, April 1st in theaters. Also in theaters on April 1st, The Contractor, which is a new movie with Chris Pine. He plays a special forces agent who becomes a private contractor. And The Barbarians, which stars Ewan Rowan, who is in Game of Thrones. He was Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones. And it's him and his wife, I believe, are having like a dinner party, and they have some guests over, and things just start becoming... It turns into like a horror film, basically.
Starts waving around sausages.
Starts eating sausages in front of in front of Reek. Yeah, things get unsettling. So it'll be that's kind of a horror film coming out also on Friday, April 1st in theaters. That is it for On the Horizon, and that brings us to our final segment, full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we will be discussing the last 4 episodes of Our Flag Means Death, Season 1, Episodes 7 through 10. We do not yet know if there will be a Season 2, but the way this ends, there very well should be a Season 2. Not even could, but should.
Well, Season 2 is definitely being planned.
Yeah, it hasn't been greenlit or announced yet.
Right.
So we'll have to see.
But yeah, the way this ends, obviously it's not meant to end here. This is not written as a conclusion.
When we talked about the last 4 episodes, one of the main things is that it's good, but it's not as good as, say, What We Do in the Shadows or some of the other stuff that Taika's been involved in. But we were just towards the end. We were starting to get to know the characters more. We mentioned that the relationship between Blackbeard and Steed was like a big part of what made it work, but we wanted to get to know some more of the characters. I think we got to know some more of the characters a little bit.
Yeah, it had to happen.
What really happened is that they did more with the relationship between Blackbeard and Steed.
Well, that's the main focus of the series, really. So we got a little bit more with Jem and stuff, but there's still a lot of characters who only seem to be there for one-off jokes. Like the Scottish guy sunbathing in the moonlight, or the Swede. The Swede's only there. It'd be cool if we got deeper dives into those characters because they are weird, but they only seem to just show up when they need some cheap comic relief, and it's
Swede's teeth are falling out because he has scurvy.
Yeah, scurvy. Which is again, it's just a joke at the beginning of the episode. It's the springboard to the action and the rest of it, but it's not central plot to the episode. It doesn't ever come up again. Does he get the scurvy cured off screen or something? I don't know.
Well, I mean, scurvy is just a vitamin C deficiency, so apparently they got their vitamin C.
But again, they could do more with that character. That's the thing. So we're getting some, but it definitely feels uneven at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, the way I felt for the first few episodes last week, I still feel the same way for the last few episodes.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion from last week still hasn't changed.
Well, it seems less like they're just trying to make a goofy pirate comedy in the way that they were doing with What We Do in the Shadows, and more like they're trying to say something about people having a place,
Right,
or people finding their tribe and finding their place in the world. largely having to do with like the LGBTQ community, which at the time was not even a thing at all, in which this takes place, and what that means of like people like in a homosexual relationship, in this kind of time, in this kind of era, in this level of acceptance. But honestly, weirdly enough, like amongst pirates, it just not being that big of a deal where it is outside of that.
Right. Yeah. No, like I get that. Like I have no complaints about that, obviously, but my deal is like, if you go to something with What We Do in the Shadows, every character is well-rounded, well-developed.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to see more focus put on some of the minor characters. So you get more attachment to the crew and how the crew operates as a unit and like their interactions. I think the writing could be stronger there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the performances are really good with the characters.
Yeah.
Where like even something that isn't really that well developed can have impacts because the performances are so strong. A good example of that would be
strong performances all across the board.
A good example of that would be Buttons having his bird get hit by the whip and killed.
Yes.
And how much of an impact that had on him and how angry he was. And they played it for comedy, but they also played it for like,
that was a really
his,
good
one companion in the world, right? And how hard that is.
And that was like a very good character moment for him too. That was very good. That episode was probably one of the best of the latter half of the season because like Will Arnett was on there. Will Arnett like freaking killed it. That's like
Calico Jack.
Calico Jack's fucking jackass. and Will Arnett is very good at playing these fucking jackass like type characters too.
Yeah. Like you meet him in person and say, "Hey, Will, you're so good at playing a jackass."
Yeah, exactly. He is.
Yeah, he definitely is. I like the way they played that through. The storyline with him I thought was interesting and it was well done. I like the way they played like off between jealousy between like him and Steed with kind of Blackbeard between them, and the way they even address directly. Calico Jack straight up says to Steed, "What are you having sex?" Right. He's like, "It's no big deal." He's like, "Everything's kind of fair game on the sea." But then like that gives more context to the jealousy angle between the two of them. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And that's kind of where we started. It'd been hinted at, but that's when we started really getting more into kind of the sexuality of the show,
Yeah. I would say it was official in like, I think the episode before that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was like the first time it was directly referenced.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was cool. I kind of cracked up just for a brief moment when they signed up to be privateers for the British government. And they had like the little cutaway with the king making the proclamation about, and then it shows them enlisting as privateers and it's like privateer school.
Yeah.
For wayward, really funny.
Privateer school for wayward seamen.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. I wish there was more like little kind of quick visual gag things like that throughout the series. That's the kind of thing you'd see more of in like What We Do in the Shadows. So yeah, I thought that was a really funny moment. And I did how did you feel about the way they ended with the relationship between Blackbeard and Steed? Blackbeard feeling jilted. How did you feel about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was great. That's the central focus of the entire series. So.
You think we're going to see Lucius again?
Definitely. He's not gone.
He's going to wash up on some shore.
Blackbeard going back to like his dark place at the end. Like going back to bad Blackbeard.
I also like how they portrayed that as like, that's his costume. Being the evil Blackbeard is his costume. And he even did that by like, he was putting the makeup on his face because he didn't have a beard anymore,
Taika is so good in this role, by the way. I say Taika is like killing it in this role. But yeah, we got the sense that Blackbeard was like, that's the wall he put up to keep the rest of the world out because he is internally in so much pain, because of his upbringing and things that happened in his life. He is in pain, so he doesn't want to let anybody in. And so he puts up this air of being like, this monstrous barbarian to keep people at a distance. And Steed was the first person to like really break through that and like open him up. Mm-hmm. And we saw him when he was with Steed, he took the wall down. He became Ed again. And then as soon as he starts believing Steed abandons him, up comes that wall again. He's Blackbeard again.
This really kind of makes you hate Izzy Hands, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, Izzy Hands is really freaking despicable.
Yeah.
Because Izzy Hands is infatuated, in love with that character that Ed created. He isn't infatuated with Ed, so much. He only cares about the myth.
Yeah, he just cares about the image and stuff, and he's kind of trying to force Blackbeard to maintain that, even though that is not what he wants. And it's obvious that that's not what he wants.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I think the funniest scene in all of this was the death of Admiral Chauncey Badminton.
Oh, God, yes. He gets drunk and he goes after Steed with a pistol, and as soon as he pulls it out, as soon as he goes to take the shot, he trips and shoots himself.
In the eye.
Which
is just, it's basically the exact same way his brother died, where he tripped and landed on his sword going through his eye,
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It's the exact same way. That was really funny.
Oh, and the way, when Steed goes back to see his wife and family, and then, the way, he fakes his death so he could, escape that world for the second time.
So what was that, like a jaguar or a cheetah or something?
It was a cheetah, I believe. It was a cheetah, I think. It was a cheetah, and, it's so over the top. So first of all, he sets it up so that they're passing out flyers, warning that there's a loose wild cheetah, running through the town. And then they set it up so, the cheetah chases Steed inside of a home and then ravages him. And then he comes out, arranges for a carriage to run him over, which throws out the fake body.
Well, even before that, before he came out, as he's coming out of the house, he also set up that the cheetah was fine, and the cheetah settled down, and it's not his fault.
Oh, yeah, he calmed it down. Yeah, he calmed it down. And then he sets up for a carriage to run him over. Of course, that carriage delivers the body of the fake Steed body, throws it down. And then to cap it off, he had it set up so that a piano would fall on the body that was thrown there. It's so over the top and ludicrous.
I love how, before that scene, as it's setting up to that scene, you see the people holding the rope with the piano hanging, and they're how are we supposed to pull this up the rest of the way? How are we supposed to get that in? And he's like, I don't know. We're just supposed to hold it halfway up.
Yeah, they only paid us to pull it halfway up. At the end, we find out, it was Steed who, paid them to do that. Without, really telling them what they were, actually doing.
And then he's, leaving in the carriage that dropped the dead body, away, and you just see him in the carriage, and he's all proud of himself, and he's like, now that's a fuckery.
But, yeah, no, that's a fuckery. Cherry on the top, too, because after, the carriage takes Steed, the one guy is oh, well, he could still be okay, and then the piano falls.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the funniest moments in this entire back half was in the episode where they were going on the treasure hunt, the scurvy episode that we were discussing, and Blackbeard is not having any fun, and I think he leans against a tree and a snake falls out of it, unexpectedly, and he goes, ape shit on the snake. I was dying.
When they were eating it, he was like, it's very tenderized.
yeah, very tenderized, yeah.
I thought it was a good show. I like that they kind of went in a direction where they kind of were trying to establish more meaning. I know Taika Waititi put out a message talking about what the series meant and why they were involved in it and why they did it, and trying to make something that was about people fitting in, kind of,
Right. Right.
And so I really dug that aspect of it.
Also, Jim,
I wish they'd gotten a little bit funnier, what we do in the shadows.
Also, Jim being interesting because Jim obviously comes out as non-binary. There's a scene where they're speaking to their mother in that episode, and their mother she's I think calls them by their previous name, and they're no, it's Jim. Mm-hmm. It's just Jim now. And
the actor is non-binary too.
Yeah, the actor is non-binary as well. And I read the actor speaking how much having that character means to them as well, that representation.
Yeah, there's a lot about sexuality in there. Having a character that's non-binary but still involved and based on birth gender, a hetero relationship, but not because of, being non-binary. And then also you have, the relationship that develops between Lucius and Black Pete, you know, who is Black Pete being such a joke of a character, and then like actually like, oh, okay, no, he's got like a human side to him besides just being kind of a joke.
Yeah, it was funny like seeing like Black Pete like kind of mellow out, because like it seemed like at the pilot like he was going to be a more antagonistic force, but he really doesn't.
I like when they
mutinied
against Izzy Hands, and part of the mutiny was like because he was going to be the first mate, like Black Pete.
Yeah.
And then like when they're mutinying, Black Pete's like, he's like, I never accepted the position. He's like, I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. I'm glad they were able to do something with him besides just keeping him as like the biggest joke on the show.
Yeah, same. Like I say, I'd love to see them do more with Swede. I'd love to see them do more with the Scottish guy.
The navigate buttons, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to see them do more with Wee John, who is Christian Narn from Game of Thrones.
Wee John, love to see do more with him.
The actor Christian Narn is gay as well. So
oh, really?
It would be interesting to kind of give him an opportunity to, you know, because he's not the type of actor you would see having like an on-screen relationship normally, you know?
Right.
I remember seeing, this is unrelated to like LGBTQ, but I remember seeing this interview a long time ago, like when Lost was still on. It was all about like Asian American actors and stuff. And they had Daniel Day Kim, who played Jin. And he was talking about how on Lost, that was his first on-screen kiss. And he'd been in the industry for like 15 years at that point.
Oh, wow.
And that was his first on-screen kiss because Asian males weren't considered like a sexual role, you know, like you wouldn't have that.
That's idiotic, but there's a lot of idiotic things.
Yeah. So you have a character like, or an actor like Christian Yarn, who's played Hodor in Game of Thrones, and who's just like a really big guy and who's gay.
Oh yeah, he was Hodor.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect to see him in like a featured relationship or something. So it'd be interesting if we could see that in like a season 2, you know, because that would break norms not just amongst representation for gay people, but representation for an actor who's just like a very large character who fits a very like
the sad thing is like
role,
the sad thing is like people like, if that's another thing too, like if you're not conventionally attractive, you tend to get typecast, you know, like into supporting roles, and you're never like put into like a romantic situation or anything.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like it would be cool if they were able to do something, and with kind of what they've been doing in a season, I kind of almost expect them to be doing something like that if they get a second season, and kind of hope they do. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the show overall. Like you said, it could have been better. Could have been funnier.
It could be funnier. It could be better. The writing could be sharper. But like, I appreciate, like, it's good. I appreciate what it's doing. I appreciate like what it strives to do. So yeah, I'd be down for season 2.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be a fun show to continue on with. I'd love to see where they would move forward with Blackbeard and Steed. The way they ended it with, you know, Blackbeard having abandoned most of Steed's crew.
Well, he's throwing out Steed's books too. So like he's in this dark place where he wants nothing to do with Steed because he believes Steed abandoned him.
He basically keeps
he's in a place where he's very, very hurt.
Yeah.
And that's where he's at, you know, like, so he's kind of like just abandoning almost everything that reminds him of Steed.
Yeah, he's basically only kept Jim and Frenchie.
Yeah.
It's also kind of cool that they showed Frenchie, the reason they kept him is because he could sew. And the pirate flag that they had shown for Blackbeard before that was like very close to his actual flag. And the one they showed at the end of the season
had the hearts.
That is his actual flag. That was Blackbeard's actual flag with the hearts on it, but now it has like this different meaning in this show than it did like in reality. And like, I just didn't even really pay attention to the fact that the hearts weren't there at the beginning when you first see his flag, and then they are afterwards, and how that has like a meaning in the show. So that was kind of a cool touch too. But yeah, that is Our Flag Means Death Season 1. No word yet if there's going to be a Season 2, but there should be. It's set up for a Season 2, and it sounds like we'd both be excited to see it back.
Yeah.
That's it for our show. Next week, we will be talking about Moon Knight, so look forward to that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero. Check out our Facebook page, our Twitter accounts, our website, thetotalscreen.com, our YouTube channel. Everything like that you can find by finding one of our container stories for a podcast episode on our website. That's probably the easiest way to find all the links you need. You can also look us up on your podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcast or Pocket Cast, anything else like that you might use. Look us up. If you aren't able to find us, let us know, and we'll see if we can rectify that situation. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotaliscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.